Alright, this is the briefing video for 13th of November 2023, 6 p.m. at the Township Hall. Normal meeting, obviously, we call to order, invocation and pledge, roll call, approval of agenda, approval of past meeting minutes, treasurer's report, paying the bills, fire department report, planning commission report, maintenance and grounds report, and I have left a space for visiting official updates in case people are starting to run for office. That's going to be happening in the next few months when people file, and in case any senators, Congress people come or send their people to update us as well, just so they have a certain spot for it. And then we have our first public comment on agenda items, 3 minutes. Then we get into our decision items. First one being on the M120 Christmas tree. Various developments on this. We got a hold of 2 arborists from Jelinek and Getter Cut, and both of them have said that it has a fungal infection. Information on it is in here, the specific name of it. It can be treated. That obviously costs some money, but it makes sense to, I think, try to save that tree. But the other option is, and one of the arborists did say that type of spruce may not grow great here because it's not getting enough sun. A different type of spruce could grow better. We could get a different tree growing and get it ready for being replaced. So a couple of different options on that. Obviously, there is the option of doing a flagpole that would also be decorated with lights during the holiday season, but also having the tree would be nice. And did get a hold of someone who was involved with putting that tree out there and taking care of it for many years. They just don't now. And so it included that letter from the resident in the board packet as well. Next, we have automatic door openers. And I had thought about this early on, before we were looking at the rest of the construction, and it was 5 figures, just above 10 grand somewhere, and so I just didn't pursue it at that time. Now we've done a bunch of other construction. We're just finishing up some of these updates on the interior now, and I just never added it back in, never brought it back up. But Amy is sitting out front and watching some of the older people come in, and every now and then we get someone with a wheelchair, but more often it's just people struggling with doors. An automatic door opener would make sense. Still about the same price, a little over 11 grand, which is right about where it was at a different company quoted before, but right in there, so it would make sense to add. Also, it would make sense to add some sort of adjustment to hear better through the glass. Thought with the opening on the bottom that it would work fine, but something could be adjusted there. We can't cut holes in this glass because of the type of safety glass that it is, so we might set up an electronic thing. We'll see. That's not included in here, but as far as adjustments go, I should have an update on that soon. Next, we have Resolution 2023-35 for ARPA fund expenditures. And so on this, and I'm not sure the exact numbers, but there's a few percent, I believe 1% would apply to us, of an increase in that amount, essentially like a little bonus if we allocate the money, and it's more than allocate, if we have it contractually obligated by the end of 2023. And I've wanted to make sure a decent portion of that money goes towards roads as well. And so talked with the road commission, already had them making up a plan for the next 2 years worth of projects. And basically we can allocate over $400,000 is the contract in here. The road commission was able to make up. I wasn't sure if we'd be able to get it done in time. We signed a 1-year contract with them every year, but it has to go through our board, it has to go through the road commission board, but luckily we do. We have the plan in place, we have the contract in here. Between the chart that's contained in here and the contract, there's a little difference in price, and that's because when they were first making up the chart, they forgot to add Central Road that just got paved for a chip seal for next year, which is the normal process they like to do because it extends the length of the road quite a ways for a decently low amount of money. So that's added in the contract as well. And so that is written in there, and the construction costs, which puts us above what we have left for ARPA funds, so it'll all be contractually obligated at that point. We should have everything filed next month, after this meeting, within the next month, and that should give us that little 1%. If it's 1% of the ARPA funds, which is the way I initially read it, I'm not sure if that's 100% true right now, but that would be just a little over 8 grand, which ends up working out decent. And this way we know that a good portion of money is going towards the roads, because the road commission matches us on most of that stuff. Some stuff they only give 25%, but a lot of stuff, especially if they're recommending, they'll match us 50%. So it doubles the amount of money being spent on the local roads here. So that's huge. And potentially, I was talking with the road commission, they could do all of those projects next year. So we'll see, but it could be a lot of road work, which would be good. Next, we have the land bid opening on Chicago and Michigan. Last step, the minimum was set for this last month. I believe it was $5,590. It's in here for 3 little parcels there. PLM contract on West Lake. So we have multi-year contracts on North Lake, Middle Lake, and Twin Lake. West Lake is set up to do the same thing, which would make sense. It's the only lake where there's really been discussion of potentially not doing PLM. I reached out to another company earlier this summer that was supposed to get me a quote on there, one of their major competitors, and they never got back to me with a quote on that, and then no one ever got back to getting a petition going for doing mechanical cutting or anything like that. And so, I mean, we could choose the 1-year contract, but if you do the multi-year, they can only increase the prices by a certain amount per year, so it does make sense to treat it that way, but I have that contract in here. Next, we have a land sale request on East Drexel. This is the first step of that, of determining if it's going to be sold and how we're going to come up with a minimum. The next month would be setting the minimum. The next month would be opening bids. Next, we have our discussion items. First is fireworks, and so this was just brought up, and I've heard about this over the last few years. You know, the people that get together are doing a community service on raising money and organizing that and having the fireworks display on the 4th of July at Twin Lake. And, you know, trying to organize those things is always an operational challenge, and I've heard they've had some challenges, and it was just mentioned that maybe bringing it up at a board meeting might bring some awareness to it, help get some other community members engaged. So it's just down here for discussion. Next, we have the community center. Has been brought up many times. I'm potentially building a community center. You know, I'm hesitant on the allocation of resources, but certainly worth having the discussion, and that's why that's on here. Next, we have the Parks and Recreation Committee. We're going through redoing the Parks and Recreation Plan because that's up, right? That's expiring. To keep that updated, in the past, there was a Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. And as Steve's been going through it, he said, you know, it kind of would make sense to have a Park and Recreation Committee. Wouldn't have to meet every month necessarily, but quarterly, something like that might make sense, which we have between the various townships up here. We have a committee like that commission that meets quarterly for the Berry Junction Trail, so probably something somewhat similar. Worth discussion. Next, we have 2024 meeting and holiday schedule. So this year it was a little odd because we switched to not having Fridays, having extended hours Monday through Thursday, so that threw off some of the holidays here, but we've adjusted that internally for staff. And so that's going fine. This is planning for that year out. Along with the meetings. So 2 of the meetings make sense to be moved for holidays. 1 meeting makes sense to be moved for a potential election, depending on how the presidential primary goes, either in the end of February or the beginning of March. The holidays, there's 2 lists in there. Tracy had one that was it was more extensive, right? It's like your selection of potential holidays, and there's a weird number of debates over holidays. You know, it seems like it could be a relatively minor issue, but it's not. And then Christy had another list down there, and the ones that probably make sense to apply to us. It's debatable. You know, a couple of years ago, I brought up the idea of having Good Friday off, and then people wanted to match that with Juneteenth, which originally a Texas holiday, and so it started to escalate. So we fell back on copying the county, but we certainly don't have to do that. Having it as a discussion this month means we can vote on it next month, and we can determine what we want to have the township do. So that is the agenda for the meeting on Monday. And this is posted online, obviously. And I sent out the emails to anyone that signed up on the website for the email list last night as well, which is the same time that I send it out into the board and staff. And so if anyone has any thoughts, questions, ideas, comments, concerns, feel free to reach out. Direct line at the office is area code 231-332-6700, or email supervisor@daltontownship.org. Otherwise, this is Jeff Martin signing off until next time.